Understand that if they launch the missile and the United States is not able to knock the missile down, which is what the plan is, then perhaps you may not wake up in the morning. Where will you spend eternity? Let's not get this thing twisted. Don't think that we are so defensible that nobody can penetrate the United States. Let's get this thing clear real quick, because I know how it is. We America, and don't nobody mess with America, but if they took down the two towers, and even in 01, I believe that was in 01, when they took down the towers, they already have projected that they had missiles pointed at Houston, LA, and also New York. And I believe even Miami, and if those missiles would have hit the United States, not only would your world and my world be changed, but perhaps we wouldn't even be here. And the fool at North Korea tomorrow marks the day of his grandfather, his birthday, even though his grandfather is deceased, and they're planning that perhaps he's going to launch them either late tonight or early in the morning. So I still came to have worship in spite of what goes on around me, because my praise is not predicated on what's going on around me, but what's on the inside of myself. If you didn't come to have church, all you came was for a dedication, you can't get it wrong. Let's get to the text. We read it for our responsive reading. We don't want to prolong the time, but let's read it again for the sake that somebody wasn't here. It says, I cried unto the Lord with my voice unto the Lord I did make my supplication. I poured out my complaint before him. I showed before him my trouble. When my spirit was overwhelmed within me, then thou knewest my path. In the way wherein I walked, have they privately laid a snare for me. I looked on my right hand and beheld, but there was no man that would know me. Refuge failed me. No man cared for my soul. I cried unto thee, O Lord. I said, thou art my refuge and my portion in the land of the living. Attend unto my cry, for I am brought very low. Deliver me from my persecutors, for they are stronger than I. Bring my soul out of prison, that I may praise thy name. The righteous shall compass me about, for thou shalt deal bountifully with me. May the Lord have blessed the reading, the hearing, the understanding of his holy and divine word. If it would be God's will this morning, I just want to talk real briefly on this simple subject: finding tranquility in your solitude. Finding tranquility in your solitude. I know. Why'd you bring those words out? Because they don't know perhaps what the word may be. Tranquility, finding peace in your loneliness. Solitude, finding peace in your loneliness. You be so kind of turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, I count it all joy when I fall into diverse temptation, knowing that it makes and worketh patience. God bless you. Here is the text. This is the 142 division of the Psalms. Now, Psalms, from the first Psalms to 150 Psalms, it is divided into 5 books. So we don't say in the book of Psalms, so-and-so chapter. They're not chapters, they're divisions, and there are 5 books broken up, and this is the latter part of the 5th book. When you are around around 136 all the way to 150, it is kind of around that last 5th book area, and the writer is David. For those who don't know who the writer is here, this is David, and David is penning this text, and he's penning it from a cave. So that's why you are in solitude or you're in loneliness, because he is inside a cave.
Yeah.
It is perceived and denoted that he's in the cave because Saul is after him. And God gave him a place of refuge. And in his despair, he is able to pin out and articulate what is going on inside of his soul.
Yeah.
Now, I came by to tell you, if you are not been lonely, your day is coming where you will become lonely sometime or another in this life.
Yeah.
You see, I was the youngest of three, and because I was the youngest of three growing up, I was afraid of the dark. Been a little while, and because I was afraid of the dark, I would either go and get in bed with my sister, or I could not wait till my brother got home, because we would oftentimes share a room. He wasn't there, spend the night somewhere. All of a sudden the walls seemed like they would talk. You heard the little cracks in the wall at night, and all of a sudden the shadow from the tree limb looked like it was an arm reaching at me in the dark, and they told us when we were children that boogeyman would be up under the bed or inside of the closet. See, as a child I had Teddy Ruxpin, and the Teddy Ruxpin would talk. If you would press play on the back of the Teddy Ruxpin, and my sister had another little animal like that, but her one of her little animals was missing the eye. And that would make me afraid at night, because sometimes Stephen King would have different movies where it would be toys that would rise up at night. So I know something about being alone and scared, but somebody else, they're not alone when they were just a child, but even now. Your kids have graduated from high school and they are in college, and it seems like you're all by yourself. They don't call you on the weekend. When the holiday time comes, they go to their friend's house in another city. If that's not your circumstance, then your husband might have gone on to be with the Lord, and you are by yourself. Oh, he's creeping in the other room. But perhaps, whatever your circumstance may be, I think all of us can identify with being by ourselves at some time or another. David said, I am all by myself, even though I am a man of power, a man of prestige. I find myself all by myself. What are you saying, preacher? What I'm saying is, it does not matter where your degree is from, where you come from, or where you live. God has a way of putting you all by yourself. Your degree don't help you in time of despair. Your education has no place when they're sick in the body. Who cares if you graduated from Harvard, you got a brain tumor? And they've already given you 3 months to live. Your education does not determine where you are in life. He says, I am in a cave because all my folk have abandoned me. But I got 3 things, and I'll be out of here. 3 things here. First thing I want us to understand is that I can find tranquility in my solitude. First thing is, we must see David's approach. Let the church say his approach. David's approach, and you see that there in verse 1. He says, I cried unto the Lord with my voice. With my voice unto the Lord did I make my supplication. Look at it. First of all, he says, I cried. Cry is an inarticulate utterance of distress. And he says, I cried because my situation was so raggedy. that I cried unto the Lord. But here in the Hebrew, this word cry implies that he is not just crying with his literally tears coming down his face. His soul is crying. In other words, he is shouting at the Lord. It says in verse 1, it says, I cried unto the Lord with my voice. You see the repetition. Anytime you see the repetition like this in the song, that denotes and indicates the intensity. He ain't just crying because somebody looked at him crazy. He ain't just crying because somebody called and made a rumor about him. See, David has a real reason to cry unto the Lord. A whole lot of us ain't nothing even that wrong in our lives. We got good health. We have good jobs. We live in pretty good neighborhoods. Our children are not having any mental problems for the most part. And most of us still think that we're in despair. Yeah. Well, if you have misconstrued what real despair is, when you have real despair, you won't know it. Because you've been blocked and nagged by the fact that because somebody didn't call you on your birthday, that don't mean you despair. Come on now. See, so I told you I'm not from Dallas, but I found out here in Dallas when it comes to birthday, we lose our mind in Dallas, Texas. Yes. Don't get me wrong, birthday's important. You don't have a birthday, I mean, you ain't around. But in Dallas, Texas, folks just lose their mind when it comes to birthday. You ain't got. I know I'm in Dallas, but oh well. Say amen anyway. They take a whole week off. Their birthday is Saturday. Monday I ain't going into work because Saturday my birthday. Your birthday is Saturday. Take a whole week off. And when we was in college, some of the girls would take a whole month. Every Friday, happy hour, because they celebrate their birthday. Your birthday was last month. They got the nerve to have an attitude when you don't come to get together. First of all, we just lose our mind, and the problem is, if somebody don't call us on our birthday, we lose our mind. So we have a misunderstanding about what it really means to be all by yourself. So you have to understand what's going on with David. First of all, David was a part of the king's court. If you remember back in 1 Samuel around chapter 17, Samuel goes and finds David and brings David because, David comes to the king because Goliath is going around killing folks. And Saul is so enamored with David that he said to David, I want you to become part of my kingdom. He says, I want to make you my armor bearer. And while you're in my chambers, you can play the harp. Help cool my temperature down because Saul had a temper. Saul was like some of us. He was just crazy. Yeah, you know how it is. Some of us got some crazy folk in our family. And you know some folk in your family, they got a temper. They just, when they come, folks start wanting to leave the party. Because if their seat is not right, they got an attitude. If you don't say hello to them, they mad. And they're the type of folk that they just can't be mad by themselves. They got to tear the whole party up. You know, you've been watching Bravo, and because she wouldn't come as Baps from the movie, then they going to tear the whole party up. And they're going to stand outside and parade back and forth. And you going inside, I ain't going inside. You go inside, and before you know it, everybody's inside. Some folk that have that kind of mindset, they want to just make everybody else's life miserable. Because misery loves company. So he's the type of person that he's used to being around Saul. But Saul saw David as a threat. You know, David was little old rinky thinking, and David and Saul was actually tall men. The Bible said that Saul actually had good looks. You know how it is in our culture. Women love tall, dark men. But David was kind of like Pastor Jackson. He wasn't tall. And the Bible said that he was small because he was smaller than his brothers. Little old guy. But because after they had took back to battle and they come back riding into the city, they said that Saul killed his thousands. Yeah. Well, why you always got to bring women into it? The women. Saying that Saul slaying his 1,000, but David slaying his 10,000. And all because somebody else gave accolade to somebody else besides the king. The king wants him dead. And see, I know a little bit about somebody wanting me dead. He may not necessarily want me dead physically, but he wants to destroy all of my ministry because I rose up.
Yeah. Come on, Pastor.
Yeah. Let's address that because the youth pastor. I was a youth pastor and I never came in wanting nobody's job, nobody's position. In fact, I was sent to be the youth pastor. I didn't seek the church out. The church came after me. And because he was friends with my father, I went to be the youth pastor. I was there about a year and kids loved me. The parents of the kids loved me. And we were doing things with the youth that they hadn't done in several years, and because I was getting a little beside myself. Rumors began to circulate throughout the church that I was embezzling money. I didn't even know what account they went to in the bank. So how could I take money? I was holding private studies at my house. Anybody know me? I don't like folk at my house. And I was talking about the pastor behind his back. And now you would have thought that because we were line brothers on the same fraternity, we would have been able to sit that thing down and find common ground, but he never even wanted to sit down. He said because I was deciding to organize, I had already concocted a plan. And because 10 to 15 of his members decided to relocate, he had decided that I'm as good as dead. In fact, this individual started telling me he doesn't even talk to my father anymore. I've invited preachers from his church to come over and preach, and he's told them they have no dealings with the Jackson. See, I know something about somebody having it out for you because God has favor on you. Even if I try to make amends, he's blocked every time I've tried to make amends. So somebody else here knows that if God has favor on you, then Satan will bring some foes to your doorstep. See, a whole lot of folk want God to shine on them, but I came by to tell you, you can't handle sometimes the shine, because with the shine comes adversity and foe. A whole lot of folk want God to reign on their life, but in knowing that God is reigning, Satan will get upset. When Satan gets upset, he's going to send his henchmen after you. But look at his approach. He says, I cried. And in verse 2 he says, I poured out my complaint before him. He spilled out. That pour is zukwa in the Hebrew, zukwa. And it means to spill out his inner being towards God. In other words, when you go to God in prayer and you want God to fix your situation, you got to get to the position that you're going to empty out yourself before God. Just like I poured out my complaint before God. In other words, David is not complaining about God, but he is sending his complaint to God. See, there's a difference. Most of us are complaining about God. God, why have you not? Lord, I asked you 10 years ago and you still have not. And God is saying, I don't play those games. Don't you complain about the goodness that I've done in your life. Although you may not have the house you desire, I don't have you on the streets. Although you may not have the best husband in the world, at least you ain't sleeping all by yourself. A whole lot of folks complain about what they say God has not done I think this is important for us because it says that he poured out himself to God. Oh. Somebody else probably didn't see it, but I see it. He took his problem to the one who could fix the problem.
Come on.
See, too many of us pour out our problem to folk that got problems of their own.
Say that, Pastor.
Let me say it one more time. Yeah, I like that. Too many of us pour our problem out to some individuals who have the same or more problem than we have. I remember in school, you know, my sister and her girlfriend, they would always have powwows. You know, they'd fry their little chicken wings. Somebody making the nachos. They be getting the pink panties ready. And I'd be in my room, but I'd be listening. Come out every now and then, act like I want a piece of chicken, but I'm just really trying to get to know what's going on. But they would have these powwows that, girl, let me tell you this, and he didn't do this, and he didn't do that. And the problem was, oftentimes, it would always just go around and around the circle of who problem was what problem, but nobody ever had solution to the problem. Because see, after I tell you that Steve didn't do, then somebody else will tell you that David didn't do, then somebody else will tell you that DeMarcus didn't do, after DeMarcus didn't do, then Samson didn't do, and before you know it, all we did was just have a powwow. And I just laugh in another room. And sometimes they say, hey, little brother, they would call me little brother. Little brother, what you think? And I chime in and say my little bit of it from a man's point of view to the best of my ability at 22 years old. And all we were doing was just circle around the room. And before you know it, next week you have the same power. In other words, what I'm saying to some of us is that the problem was never fixed. Because they didn't take the problem to the one who could fix it. David got a problem, but he's not talking to his best friend. He's talking to his father Jesus. He's talking to God. Because we get access through the Son. So he tells God his circumstance. He pours out his soul to God. Not to his mama. See, some of us, we talk to our mom daily. Nothing wrong with talking to your mom daily, but why is it that oftentimes moms, grandmothers know more about our business than sometimes the folk in the house? See, I got a problem if my mom knows more about what goes on at 428 Maple Grove than Sister Jackson. Now, one of two things are going on. Either I'm talking too much, or Sister Jackson talking too much, or we're not talking to each other.
That's good. You're right.
See, the reason why oftentimes our homes are tore up is because folk outside the home know about what's going on in the house than the folk in the house. Now, you got to be at the house to get to know. See, if I'm running the streets and I don't know what's going on, I can't all be mad at her because she got to tell somebody. But oftentimes, why is it that in-laws, cousins, everybody else, your mama and them know more about what's going on in your house than you?
Come on now.
Well, because we're not telling the right person about our problem. We need to tell it to God. Because God can fix it. So I see his approach. Not only do I see his approach, but let's look at verse 3 and 4. Because now I see his anguish. See David's anguish. It said, then my spirit was overwhelmed within me. Then thou knewest my path, in the way wherein I walked, have they privately laid a snare before me. I looked on my right hand and beheld, but there was no man that would know me. Refuge failed me, and no man cared for my soul. Now, we already said that David is on the tracks of David. David has fled Judah, and he's relocated himself to a cave because he's worried about being killed by Saul. In fact, 3 times Saul had tried to kill David. The Bible speaks of one time when David is in Saul's chambers and he's playing his his music that Saul grabs a gavel and begins to conspire how he can cast the gavel at David. And something within David's spirit tells David that he needs to leave the room. Another time Saul gets David in his chambers and he actually throws the gavel at David, but David is not home. So Saul begins to conspire. He goes to his son Jonathan, some of the leaders there in the kingdom, and tells them, we got to get David out of here. We got to kill David. But Jonathan and David had a good relationship. So he comes to David and tells David what the plan is, because Daddy's after you and I'm going to try to help preserve your life. Not only that, but Saul was so tactful that he actually sent his daughter and said, I want you to marry David. And once I get him right into my grasp, I can seize and kill David. But she wasn't like the other. She was like her brother Jonathan. When David came home, she said, Daddy has a plan to kill you. And if you actually sleep here tonight, you're going to be dead in the morning. She says, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put a pillow. See, that didn't just start in Hollywood. We're going to put a pillow in the bed and make it look like it's you. And I'm going to help lower you down out of the window. What I'm saying here to somebody is David is in a bad situation. And anytime people start trying to use your family against you, you are in a bad situation. See, if Satan can't get a hold of you for himself, Satan will start using his devices around you to try to take hold of you. If he can't get you, he'll start using other people to get you. But see, this is where you got to have some. You've got to be dependent on the fact that you're dependent on God and that you're not going to just move with the wind. See, a whole lot of us, the things that we ought to be leaders about, we're not leaders. The stuff that we ought to follow, we want to be a leader. It's oftentimes the opposite. When the pastor tries to get you to follow, I want to be a leader over the pastor. When somebody's destroying people's character and you can rise up and shut that thing down, you want to follow the crowd. See, they know that. See, Big Mama has a strong voice in most of our words. And when Big Mama leaves the scene, it's usually a aunt or somebody of that magnitude that can basically shut everything down. But instead of her rising and telling everybody to go to hell, oftentimes she's the one help starting the mess. But then she'll come to church and try to tell the pastor what to do. See, we've got problems there. We got a problem. We see, when you ought to be a leader, you're not. And when you ought to follow, you want to lead. These folk weren't going to let their father influence their decision because they're their own folk. What am I saying? I'm talking to family today. We had dedication. Talking to family. Sometimes you got to tell your family where to go. And if they don't like where to go, tell them I put my foot. Now the problem is we check everybody else, but we won't check our family. Let somebody get out of line with you at work. You gonna tell them, I'm gonna meet you outside and my foot gonna be so far up, yo, so you can take the drink off my knee and all that extra stuff. But now, when your family start getting out of line, you don't say nothing to them. You know, I can't say that to her because that's my auntie. Well, if your aunt's wrong, check her. If your uncle's wrong, check them. You can still do it in a respectful way, but they need to know this is my house. You're right. You know, I ain't the biggest guy. And ain't the best fighter. See, my deacons told me that. I don't have to be the best fighter. They said they got my back. If somebody wants to harm me, but now I'm concealed. So they got my back fine, but if they don't got my back, I'm all ourselves. And sometimes we need to be reminded that if you stand up for yourself, you will be lonely at times. The family will try to use, we family. And if you ain't going to do nothing for nobody else, you ought to do it for family. And try to use that guilt trip on you. And you sometimes got to tell family, go to hell!
Preach, Pastor. Preach.
You got no problem telling everybody else. But you won't tell your mama. You won't tell your grandmother who keeps up mad. You won't tell your daddy. You won't tell your brother and sister who keep on causing problems in your relationship. And yet, you wonder why you by yourself or will you by yourself. Most people know my parents are divorced, but when I went to them before I got married, I asked them, I said, be blunt with me about some things, and they were candid with me, but one thing that my dad rings in my ear still, sometimes his new wife family tried to impose their will. My father had to tell his wife, all your sisters are divorced, and if you want to follow suit, keep on worrying about what they do. I'll be by myself. Before I let somebody that don't pay no bills in my house tell me what to do in my house. Now, let's move on to third and final point. Third and final point. We not only see David's anguish, but we now see David's assurance. See David's assurance in the text, and I see that there in 5 and 6. It says, I cried unto thee, O Lord. I said, thou art my refuge and my portion in the land of the living. Attend unto my cry, for I am brought very low. Deliver me from my persecutors, for they are stronger than I. Now, his approach was that he poured himself out. He told the Lord about his circumstance. His anguish was imminent, and it was right on his tracks. And David is still assured in his despair, because David had said when he looked to his right hand, nobody was there. Now you have to understand what that right hand represents. First of all, it's where we get the phrase, that's my right hand man. Not only do we get that's my right hand man from that phrase, but in this culture, if you were on the right hand side, that meant you were a part of that person's life. They held you in a high esteem, or they had you in a high position. When I had a dinner and I would bring guests that were valuable to me, I would put them on the right side of the table. If I was a general in the army, I would put those that I felt closest to me by my right side. In fact, Jesus sits on the right side of his Father. So he said, when I looked to my right side, I found nobody there. In other words, when you get to the point where you're distressed, frustrated, agitated, aggravated, and despaired, you will never find somebody on your right side. For a couple reasons, when you're in trouble, nobody's there. If you don't believe me, just get in some trouble. Get in trouble and find out who was there in the time of trouble. But not only that, when you look to the right, God also does it purposefully, because if you have folk there on the right, you would go to them instead of God. Come on now. Not only are you abandoned because folk leave you when you don't have nothing, but as long as you got money, as long as you pick them up for every event, you getting ready to go out on Saturday, you always got that girlfriend that she can't never drive her car, but she always wants to go. See, the day you tell her I ain't picking you up, you gonna meet me there? Well, I got homework anyway, so I might as well not even go. Because you won't do what you used to do. So anytime you stop doing what you used to do, you're going to have somebody upset with you. So they're going to abandon you. But God also says, I want them to abandon you because you have no one to turn to but to me. Come on. He's reassured because he says, thou art my refuge Now, anybody know anything about refuge? Refuge means that God is his safety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God is his shelter
Yeah.
in the times of need. He had a physical shelter, the cave, but he's not talking physically. He's talking figuratively and metamorphically. He said, you are my safety and my shelter from the fiery darts of Satan.
Yeah.
I think that's good news to know that God will shield you from anything in your life. I start thinking about folk in the Bible, how God came to their rescue, even when they didn't know he was there.
Come on.
You remember there was 3 Hebrew boys. They were deciding that they were not going to bend and give in to what the king had ordered.
Yeah.
They said, our God is able, but if he does not. Our God is able, and even if he does not, we will not bow to the golden image.
Come on now.
Because they were resistant on what they were doing, they were assured that God would show up. And he was inside the flames with them.
Yeah.
When David is on the battlefield, he comes up to Goliath and he looks at Goliath, and Goliath says, oh, you come to me without any armor or shield. He says, I come with a host of the mighty on my side, and before this day, your head will be in my hand.
Yeah. That's right. All right.
It's all about how you look at some things. David didn't look at Goliath and say, he's too big to fight. I told you before, David didn't say, Goliath, you're too big. What David says, you're too big to miss. You ain't too big for me to fight you. Because you're all masked and girt, I am able to hit you.
Yeah.
Because I got God by my side. He said, the Lord is my refuge.
Yeah.
My safety. But in closing, he also said that the Lord is his. He says he gives him his portion, my portion. Now you understand this, and I'm closing here with portion. When the 12 tribes of Israel begin to get their land in the promised land, most Bible scholars know that the Levites, they were not given land. Gave everybody else land, but they didn't give the Levites land. The reason why they didn't give the Levites land, because their job was to take care of the temple. So when they began to wonder why the Lord didn't give them any portion, God had to tell the Levites, I am your portion. In other words, this word portion here means, I am your prized possession in life. What David is saying, not only is God my refuge, but he is my everything that I need in this life. And even if I am by myself, I can have peace in my loneliness, because if I have God, he's all that I need. And somebody here needs to be reminded of that. I may not have no friends, I may not have a wife, I may not have no kids, I may not have no loved ones that care about me, but as long as I have Jesus, I have enough. I may not have diamonds and pearls. That's what Prince said. I don't have diamonds and pearls, but I've got Jesus. And if I have Jesus, he made the diamonds and the pearls. I have everything. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and they that dwell therein.
That's good.
He said, the cattle on 1,000 hills are mine, saith the Lord.
Yeah.
If you got the Lord by your side, you got everything that you need. And David is reminding us that God is everything that we need. See, he uses the word Lord. And Lord in the Hebrew, or Lord when it's all caps, means that it is Yahweh. Yahweh. And he said, Yahweh is all that I need. In other words, what he's saying when he said Yahweh, Jehovah, is all that I need. And we were supposed to sing a song, but David was going to say it best when he said that Jehovah Jireh, he's my provider. Jehovah Nisi, the Lord is my banner. Jehovah Shiloh, he's my praise of peace. Jehovah Tiskanu, he's my righteousness. Jehovah Rapha, he's my healer. Jehovah Shammah, he's there. And even in his despair, David can say, though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Why? Because God is with me. He is my Shammah. That means even when I'm in a cave all by myself, the Lord is with me. And I wish I had a witness here that can testify that even when I'm down on my knees and nobody wants to come to my aid, I have Jesus. And that's enough. If I didn't want to say it like David said it, I can say it very simple. He walks with me. He talks with me. He tells me that I am his own. And the voice that I hear while on my ear. The old folk would say, he's my way out of no way. He's my bright and morning star. He's my food on my table. He's money in my pocket. He's a star in the sky. He's a wheel in the middle of a wheel. If I didn't have a problem, wouldn't know Jesus could solve it. Yeah, God is good all the time. And all the time, God is good. Do you love him? Say yeah. Do you love him? Say yeah. He's a way out of the way. He's my rock when I get weary. When I'm blind, he leads me. When I'm thirsty, he feeds me. When I'm hungry, he's bread. He's a well that never runs dry. God is my everything. David could say that if he would fall, the Lord would pick him up. When they would throw darts, the Lord could shield him. When he's by himself, he's afraid. David could say that when he stumbles, the Lord can steady his steps. See, I think you need to be reminded that God is your everything. If he is your everything, you want to let him know that.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
See, I could have nothing and still have peace. I could be sick and still have peace. I could be all by myself and still have peace. I'm not telling you what I think. I'm telling you what I know. If you walk close enough with Jesus, he'll give you some peace that surpasses all understanding. I told you not too long ago, a couple years ago, about a year or two ago, they gave me my pink slip with DISD. Said, they gave it to me in February, and they said, if don't nothing change, by the time that school year ends in May, we're not going to bring you back. And the only check, the last check you'll get will be in August. And like any person, I was worried to a degree not because I didn't think God would take care of me, but I knew my wife was also a school teacher. And they were laying off teachers left and right. So not so much for me, but started thinking, well, I can go turn the burger over because I ain't too good. I ain't too good to work at Walmart, or I ain't too good to work at the mall. I'm going to eat. And I'll make sure the folk in the house eat, even if that means I got to go to the graveyard shift. So I wasn't worried about me, but trying to cover two income as opposed to one income was going to be kind of difficult. And I prayed about it and gave it over to the Lord, and I went about my day. There were some other folk at the school, if they used to wear makeup, they weren't even wearing makeup no more. If they had their hair wrapped, they didn't even wrap it up at night because their world was just all messed up. And I still come in there with my suit on and smiling and greet folk, and people would be saying, saying, how can you smile at a time like this? Because I know he lives. He lives on the inside. And no job determines how God or what God is doing in my life. Prayed about it some more, and I left it alone. I didn't even have sleepless nights. And normally I worry a lot. I'm a person that worries a lot. In fact, I worry so much naturally that I had high blood pressure, was taking prescribed medication because if I had I would just worry to the point where I would almost kill myself. I was walking around with 160 over 90 because I was worried. But I slept good all those months, and I just started devising a plan that if I don't get to go back, start putting some money aside and look for jobs. And before you know it, the last day of school, the principal called me in the office and said, I don't know what happened, but we found some money so we can bring you back next year. See, I'm not telling you that God will supply your need. I'm telling you, he will if you believe. I'm not telling you on those gimmicks scheme or trying to pump you up. I'm telling you, he real. Somebody else knows what I'm talking about. He's real in your situation. If it had not been for God who was on your side, where would you be? You can look back in your own life and how you probably should have been killed, but the gun jammed. How the car, normally when it flips 2 times, nobody survived, but you walked away. How your kids, even though they were born premature, they don't show any delay. Can't tell me God ain't real. You can't tell me God isn't good. And even if I don't have no money in my pocket, the Lord is still good. The doors of the church are open.